YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have a very special video for you guys. I have been wanting to try something like this for a long time now, and seeing as I've been getting really into F1 recently, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to start up my F1 career online in F1 22 that just came out not but a week or so ago. So in this video, you are going to see the beginning of MrDakota0 Racing, the newest team to join the F1 Paddock. It is going to be a long way back from being this newcomer on the streets all the way up to being a championship level contender that we all know we will be eventually. But for now, go ahead, subscribe down below if you enjoy F1 content. I'm hoping to bring a lot more of this kind of thing to the channel. And for now, enjoy episode 1 and the first race of the 2022 F1 online season, as well as the first appearance of MrDakota0 Racing.
Hello folks, and welcome to this, a very special edition of Paddock Pass. We're here at the headquarters of Formula One's newest team for an exclusive first look at what they will be bringing to the sport. It's always an exciting moment to welcome a new team onto the grid. However, what makes this occasion a little more special is how strikingly different the cars are this year. Yep, the long-awaited new regulations are finally here, and with them, the start of the next era of Formula One. The 2022 season ushers in a change of direction to the regulations aimed at promoting closer racing, with new aero additions in the form of swooping front and rear wings, along with the new eye-catching 18-inch low-profile tyres that will push tyre technology to the limit. So then, the question remains as to whether this team can grasp the opportunity before them with both hands and lead the charge against the rest of the paddock. We'll find out soon enough, as the new season is just about to begin. But first, let's see the unveiling of the team's car and meet the owner of the brand new Formula One team. Well, first of all, thanks so much for inviting us here today. It's been wonderful to see behind the scenes. As you might expect, I've got about a million questions, so let's jump straight in. It's been a long time since we last saw a team owner take their own car onto the track, and the sport's changed enormously in the intervening years. How are you going to handle the responsibilities of both managing and driving for a Formula One team? Let's talk about your teammate. Now, it's clear they're excited to have signed with you, but tell me, what is it that you think they bring to the team? So you've obviously been putting a lot of work into the car. I know it's early days, but how do you expect it to feel out there? Most of the other teams can boast years of experience in Formula One. Where do you see the opportunities to make those vital performance gains you need to put you within reach of the other cars? Ultimately, your success this season is going to come down to whether you can take positions from the other drivers. What is it about your car that's going to give you that edge in those battles? And finally, with so many specialist departments working together here at your headquarters, and with such an important deadline coming up, who's getting that coveted Teacher's Gold Star? Which group do you feel the most proud of right now? Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful to get an insight from you, and of course to see around the headquarters. Thank you for today. Really appreciate it, and thank you all at home for watching as well. We'll see you very soon.
Welcome everyone to the first episode of my F1 2022 My Career. As you can see now, we are currently setting our research and development items for the beginning of the season, as it is imperative that we catch up to the rest of the grid in terms of R&D. And now we're setting up our first weeks of activities. We are going to be performing a driver training camp as well as a preseason driver press tour to really get our name out there. And as we move forward towards our first outing into the Bahrain Grand Prix, we are very excited to be the newest team on this F1 grid, and we can't wait to get out there and show them what we've got. As we head into Bahrain, we head into qualifying as we are really getting out in our first true experience on the grid, as well as in the car. This car is, as we all know, as you start these kinds of things, not quite up to snuff with the rest of the grid. But as we move into our first lap of qualifying, and our only lap of qualifying, I should add at that, we can really feel that we definitely do not have the straight line pace, as well as in the corners, in the grip, and in the skill department. But that's more on me, the driver, than the car itself. As we try and make our way around the Bahrain circuit, we really start to get a feel for how this car is really going to let us down and how important it's going to be to get our R&D up and going as quickly as possible, as well as getting used to a subpar car out there. But we know we have a long way to go before we're going to be competitive on the grid. But we're just out here to prove that it was not a fluke that we got this spot on the grid as the newest team in Formula One. And as we come around, a minute into our qualifying lap, currently sitting in P17, we know we have a long way to go, and we're just excited to be here. And as we're in qualifying, we're kind of being pressured from behind on our lap, really putting the nerves in to set in nice and early, as we really see the lack of pace in the corners as well in the straights, where other drivers, I'm sure, are not enjoying our pace, as our teammate actually is the one that comes through, Fittipaldi. As we finish our qualifying lap for the Bahrain Grand Prix, we really get to see that we need to get our pace figured out, as we actually end up falling all the way to last place in qualifying. That's right, P22 out of 22 spots. And it really is a rude awakening into our journey into climbing this grid, eventually up the grid of F1. As you see, as we scroll down here, we see we finish well off the pace, almost 8 full seconds off the pace. And you have to wonder if that was some nerves, some lack of control in the car. Even our teammate Enzo Fittipaldi finishes quite a few spots ahead of us. But as we did fall last on the qualifying grid, we do start the Bahrain Grand Prix right at the back. But that said, let's get this thing going, and we can't wait to get underway.
Formula One returns to the desert today on this exceptional 3.36-mile circuit. 15 corners provide plenty of overtaking opportunities, and it could be a strategic race, this one, with Sakhir notorious for eating up the rear tyres. Watch out for drivers managing their rubber at some point during the Grand Prix. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Perez, George Russell, and Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Mick Schumacher, and Esteban Ocon, Joe, Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, and Magnussen, Bottas, Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo, Enzo Fittipaldi, Stroll, Albon, Latifi, and the rookie. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race.
Here's the tire strategy we will be employing for the Bahrain Grand Prix, starting on the mediums and then finishing on the hards to employ a one-stop strategy, as well as lowering our fuel to cut some weight down to a 30-lap estimate. And now as we line up on the grid and prepare for the first race of the 2022 Formula One season, we really feel the nerves start to approach as the lights go on. We are 5 lights on and lights are out, and we are away, and the 2022 Formula One season is underway as we march down the opening straight. We are feeling a bit of our lack of pace as some of the rest of the grid starts to pull away, but we make a fantastic move to dive down the inside and kind of make up for our lack of straight line speed. As we jockey for position, we end up settling behind Valtteri Bottas, and coming down to the opening straight, we actually find and settle into a bit of a groove as a couple of people come diving down the inside, including Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. We go a couple of wide down into the first big turn, and it really starts to shape out into the running order for the beginning of the race. Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo seem to be having a bit of a mini battle here to start in terms of position, as we actually give Ricciardo a bit of a bump draft through this first turn. You can really feel the nerves, the itchiness to get back on the gas, as it actually ends up costing us a bit of time. We actually run wide into this corner, and we are actually forced off the track in order to not absolutely destroy Daniel Ricciardo, and we all of a sudden find ourselves last on the grid. You have to wonder if it is a bit of nerves coming down into that first big right-hander, not willing to make a move but too late on the brakes, really gets us out of whack, and we actually end up having to run extra wide off the track, and that really sets us behind. And really, but it's still early, you know, we are only less than 1 full lap into this, and we have plenty of time to make our way back. But as we come through on our first lap, we really need to settle down, and kind of let that first big mistake, you know, behind us, and we really just need to settle in and focus on what we need to do to get back into this race. As we move forward a little bit, we actually have lost a bit of ground. You have to wonder if that first big mistake really rattled, as we get some unfortunate news from our engineer that, you know, our DRS system is currently offline, and it wouldn't be a new season if everything went perfectly in the first race. So unfortunately, not that it matters as of right now, we will be unable to use DRS for the foreseeable future. Hopefully they're able to get that fixed as we continue just to try and make up a bit of ground on Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll, who are currently sitting in P20 and P21. As we, fall even slightly further and further behind, really needing to get used to this new car and really, settling down. But at this point, as we move forward slightly ahead again, this is the point where we really need to prove that we belong, and now it's time to fight back. We finally as we finally settle down into the car, into the race, 5 laps in, we really decide it's time to, really put the head down, focus up a lot, and let's start pushing, as we, need to make up a bit of time so we don't come out of this first race with plenty of people, I'm sure, looking at us wondering if there's anything that could go right for this new team, and do they even belong on the grid if they're immediately just going to fall this far down the pecking order with some very silly early young mistakes. But as we continue to push, we actually find a bit of a groove here on this lap as we move forward trying to catch Nicholas Latifi.
To the car in front is 1.8 seconds.
So as we continue to battle and actually get the gap to Latifi down to under 1.5 seconds, we get our first interesting news of the season as Mick Schumacher goes out of the session, and it really have to wonder if this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the season. But you have to wonder what happened to cause him to go out. Is it engine trouble already this season, or is it damage, or what really happened? As we will take a look here. Mick Schumacher running pretty well, running 9th in the race before suddenly just extreme loss of power, and it just really struggles to be getting the grip. Is it engine problems? I mean, it certainly looks like it as he pulls off and officially retires from the Bahrain Grand Prix. As we take another look here, as he comes down around this corner, going very slowly. You have to imagine it is something either mechanical, engine damage, something, you know, very surprising as we get down to the first race of the season. But that essentially ensures that while we may end up last in the running order, we won't be last, as we are not the first ones to DNF out of the session, out of the season. And so really that really should only encourage us a little more that, you know, we may have had a bit of an unlucky start, but it can always be worse. So as we continue moving forward, we finally actually, as we move forward here, get our DRS back, and we can actually feel a bit of a fight coming, as our DRS seems to have fixed itself, and we finally seem to have caught the back of the pack enough that we may actually feel a bit of a fight coming on. We feel like we can really make something happen here now that we've gotten that gap to Latifi down under that 1 second barrier. We really just need to catch him in the right moment and really not make any more major mistakes, and we'll be, you know, we'll be fighting for the back of the grid, but we'll definitely be fighting not to end up last, in which, as the newest team on the grid, as the newest kids on the block, sometimes that's all you really can do. And you can see how, you know, the idea of being able to fight with another driver really invigorates us as we try and march down, braking later and later in a car that really can't do that, but we try it anyway, and doing anything we can to close the gap to Nicholas Latifi. As we start our 10th lap, we come flying down very late on the brakes, and we actually almost touch Latifi as we try and get, you know, back as much as we can. We're checking on our tire wear to make sure that everything looks okay, because we have been pushing very, very hard in a big, hefty, non-aerodynamic car, you know, really doing some damage to these tires as we are actually nearing our pit window. And we finally have the opportunity to not worry about our tires as much, and we can try and make something happen before our pit window arrives. And as we finish up lap 12 here, we actually reach the beginning of our pit window, and we decide that this is the time to absolutely go ham and try and really make something happen, as we have still yet to catch Latifi, but we did have Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen pit the lap before, and we actually come out ahead of them. So we have actually moved up quite a few spots all the way up to P18, and we see the opportunity ahead of us. We are no longer running in the back. Granted, we still do have to make our pit stop, but it really reinvigorates the race when you, after running last for so long, finally have some traffic behind you, and as you approach your pit window, you can really make something happen until we actually sustain and run a bit. It really just is a comedy of errors, as our old tires and hot brakes just can't get us stopped in time, and then another mistake as we are rattled to the core by that other mistake, damaging our front wing on the back of Nicholas Latifi. We managed to get around him, but with front wing damage and cold, worn out tires, it really is a deflating moment, as we really had something going there. And as we come into pit, having to fix front wing damage will effectively end our race, we feel, as already Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen had caught up quite a bit from those couple of mistakes, and they will surely come out ahead of us. And as we are already, you know, a full second back from Latifi here, I believe he will pit this lap as well. And it really sets us back once again as the rest of the field pits, and we get to stare at a nice long pit stop as we fix the one mistake we could not afford to make, and our broken front wing and worn out tires. Hopefully we can make something happen if we get a good pit stop here.
Okay, that was a fairly decent stop, well within the times we expected. Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. You'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track.
We re-emerge from our pit stop, now running once again behind the rest of the pack. We have the unenviable position of running last on cold, new, hard tires, and it will absolutely take a couple of laps to warm these things up to a usable point as we find ourselves at this point moving forward slightly, 12 seconds off the pack. With only 13 laps to go and these still cold tires that just can't seem to really catch any grip, we once again, our least favorite corner in the entire circuit at this point, gets us again. The cold tires, it's almost like ice. You catch, those curves, and it really is just a disaster. And it's not until this point where you really have to start making and thinking of some strategy calls of, is it worth it to keep running, as we're now almost 20 full seconds off the back of the pack. And really, as the continues over the next couple of laps, we really have to make some decisions of, do we just retire this car, save some components, admit defeat, and really just focus on going next, as we just can only chalk this up to unlucky, as George Russell actually falls out of this race as well. And so at this point, as long as we would finish and not retire ourselves, we actually would finish in the top 20 with these two DNFs, as we see George Russell here. Looks like he has a similar issue and just really can't seem to find gears, going extra slow. Really looks like there's something mechanically wrong here as he continues to fall back, as we take another alternate look here. And you can actually see right here that engine just absolutely goes as smoke pours out of the back of George Russell's car, and he looks like he is also out of the Bahrain Grand Prix with only 9 laps remaining. That's extremely unfortunate for the Mercedes driver. And once again, this is just, nothing is given in Formula One. And at this point, we get the news that George Russell also DNFs, we have to remind ourselves that we're just lucky to be here. And at this point, we're either praying for a safety car, or we're just going to finish this out, even if we may be more than out of it. We are lucky to be here. We recognize that it's a privilege to be able to get into the pinnacle of motorsport like this, and we don't want to have a stain on us for the rest of time. And our first Grand Prix, we have a chosen retirement? I don't think so. At this point, with only 9 laps remaining, we decide, we're just going to get the car around. We're going to bring it home in one piece. We're going to learn a lot of lessons from this race for sure as we move forward in the season. But this is a tough pill to swallow. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, you really have to recognize that we truly are blessed to be here, and we know we will come back stronger than this going forward. And as we actually come down, we've actually been lapped by the leaders, as we are now 50 seconds off the pace, as Max Verstappen, the Red Bull, crosses the line to take the opening round of the 2022 F1 season. Congratulations to Max Verstappen and Red Bull on an absolutely fantastic race from them. We wish we could say the same, but unfortunately that is not the case, and we are going to come home actually a lap down and very well off the pace. It may not be the outcome we hoped for, or even close to that, but at the same time, we have come to close out the opening round of our opening season of F1, and we know we have a long way to come, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was motorsport. We crossed the line in Bahrain in P20, and we know that we will come back stronger from this. We're more determined than ever at this point, as Valtteri Bottas gets driver of the day, having a very solid race for him, coming from behind towards the midfield. But it is Red Bull and Max Verstappen who crossed the line to open the season, as Checo Perez also comes home in P3, and Red Bull almost taking a clean sweep of the opening weekend as they are sandwiching Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, it would seem. Congratulations to them on opening the season very strongly. We are very jealous and wish we could be right there with them, but unfortunately, mistakes that just can't happen in this level of racing really dooms us from the beginning. We have to get back into the lab. We have to get our R&D situated, as well as some of our facilities, but it's going to take some time, and we are going to be here for the entire thing. But for now, I think that will do it for us here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Congratulations again to Red Bull on their 1-3. Congratulations to Charles Leclerc on his P2 as we finish off the first weekend of the 2022 F1 season. It is going to be a long one. I cannot wait to see how it shakes out from here. But as we see our final tallies, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, and Carlos Sainz coming home in P4. It is the Red Bulls and the Ferrari who come out on top.